Hey guys, how's it going?
Very good. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Steven, I actually want to start with you because there's been a lot of series, a lot of movies and things that talk about World War II. They're usually very heavy focused on the Nazis, but Rogue Heroes to me is in the same space, but so refreshingly different, which is what I love. What motivated you to want to tell this particular story?
I was offered the book, and the book is just tells this incredible, amazing, untold story about a group of very young men who took it upon themselves to change the way war was fought and succeeded, and were really instrumental in, the ultimate victory against an evil force, which was the Nazis. So, that story in itself is amazing. I had a personal thing that my dad was in the Eighth Army in North Africa, fighting the same battles like Tobruk and Alamein that are depicted, and I could never, from him, get any indication of what it was like. He just said, we just used to play cowboys and Indians. So I felt that researching this would help me to find out a bit more about what he went through.
Wow, that's incredible. Connor, for you, I mean, speaking of different, it feels like Sterling, he's frustrated, he's fed up, he's just a different kind of guy, which I love. He doesn't want the same old, same old. So, what was your first impression of him when you first started diving into the role?
I think there's probably two versions of Sterling. One that was left on the cutting room floor, which was a far more unlikable guy. We would often do sort of two takes, where one would be one would be quite a nasty chap, nasty in a sense of not nasty, but kind of more angry and even more frustrated at everything. I remember there was one moment where, I mean, I can't tell this story without giving stuff away, but there was definitely a moment where Tom Shanklin came over to me, an amazing director, and he said, "Okay, now let's try one, but let's just try to be more friendly." I was like, I can see where I'm sort of pitching this in the wrong way at the moment. But I think the thing that mainly attracted me was just getting a chance to play someone for the first time who was so far removed from who I am and had a completely different upbringing, completely different class. And it was definitely a daunting challenge. It's a role that doesn't, for a working class actor like myself, it's not something that really lands on your doorstep. At least it hadn't up until this point. So when it did, I very much jumped at it. And I feel very lucky and very honored that I was given the opportunity to do so.
Well, certainly lucky you did too, man, because you do a very good job. So I want you guys both to jump in on this because there seems to be some history with the guys, with Sterling, Patty, and Jock. The kids teased a little bit in the first episode. So for the both of you, how much are we going to kind of learn about that backstory in this first season?
We do find out backstory, but we only find it out, well, mostly we find it out through events that are happening at the time. It's the important thing about all three of them is that they share a kind of fearlessness, which is partly the John Keats quote, they're half in love with easeful death, so that they're actually prepared to be dead. And that gives people an incredible amount of freedom, especially in war. So they share a really strong characteristic. And in almost every other way, they're totally different. But the interesting thing is that the thing that they share is so much stronger than the differences, that's why they come together as a unit. But in terms of their background, the point of the whole thing is that their backgrounds are very different, and yet they become irrelevant in this sort of time of emergence.
And for you, Connor, we actually get to learn a little bit more about Sterling too, because he's got the backstory with his family as well, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
So that's he can't say anything about that, and there's a good reason for it. You guys will see when you watch the show. One thing I really loved too, guys, was you get a wide variety of music in this series, which I mean, it really sets the tone for what the show is all about and how fun it is. So, how'd you go about choosing the songs that were going to be used during this thing? Because I mean, it's a little all over the place in a very good way.
Yeah, I think that there's music that works and music that doesn't work, like with other things where the genre isn't the same, but something about the music, rather like the characters, you know, they're very different and yet they're the same. And I think one of the main things about the music for this was you're in a great big desert. You need music that fills that space, and big music tends to be heavy metal, punk. You know, it's loud, it's thrashing, it's vibrant, and the spirit of the people who make that kind of music resembles the spirit of the people who are conducting this war.
So Connor, one of the characters we don't get to learn too much about from the trailer, at least, is Eve. But you know, there seems to be a little bit of a connection there between her and Stirling. How much can you tell us about her?
Not a lot. I mean, if I tell you anything, it'll give away her storyline. I think, you know, Sophia Patella is a fantastic actress, and I feel very, very lucky that I was able to share the screen with her. She was so great, and she was just as a person, she was such a support out there. It was a difficult shoot. That's definitely true, and she provided us with a lot of joy, and she was very positive and uplifting. You know, she wasn't there for much. I think she sort of came out to Morocco halfway through, and it was such a morale boost because we were dealing with, you know, extreme conditions. But I really loved working with her, and I mean, I'm sort of dodging your question largely here, if you can't tell, because I don't want to give anything away. So I'll just speak well of her.
Well, I mean, Stephen is sitting right there. I completely understand why you would go that route for sure. All right, I'll give you an easy one that you guys will definitely be able to answer for sure. So, favorite episode of this season is?
Oh, all of them.
Says the writer,
yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
I mean, they really are fantastic. I mean, episode 6 is, you know, it's so, the amazing thing with this show is so much happens. And episode 6 is just unbelievable. I mean, the ending is one of the best endings I've ever seen.
And they're not kidding. They're all good. I tease, they're definitely all good. You guys will see that. Rogue Heroes premieres on November 13th at 9 p.m. Eastern on EPIX, soon to be MGM Plus, by the way. Steve and Connor, thank you guys so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.